Y'all doing? We're back again. Sorry about this thing. I guess I didn't adjust that quite right. Let me get my phone going here. I was listening to some Ronald Reagan jokes. Maybe we'll talk about that in a little while. Uh, Today, we're going to be working on the one you see there on the screen, a little beach cottage. And it should be pretty fun. It's just a cute little thing. Sherry and I've used this one to teach before. And it was just like a daydream of mine from the old days, But Sherry and I were recently in Monterey, California, and I'm reading um, 2 years before the Mast, the book written back in like 1840, I think, when it was a much simpler time. Of course, the buildings described in that book when the ship pulls into that area, Santa Barbara, which is just north of Monterey or around there. Um, it says in the book that the buildings were made out of adobe. So I guess this one would be more of my idea of beachcomber time in the early '60s, late '50s kind of a time, where beachcombers and surfboards. And I have done some drawings of this type of shack with surfboards leaning up against it. Any case, it's a nice little simple vignette. Should be a lot of fun. Okay. We'll get started. I'm going to give you let's see, a few minutes to draw yours. Let's see here. If I put the drawing up, and I will try and make the drawing large here, as large as I can. And we'll switch it over there. And meanwhile, I am going to draw mine. I already put it in. Let's see, there it is. I already kind of made it in pencil, and mine's not exactly the same as yours. But I wanted to, I like the looseness of actually just doing it with the fountain pen and not putting pencil first. But occasionally I just feel like doing it because I get busy. So I put it in pencil, and that way I don't have to concentrate on it so much. But I'll give you a few moments. You can photograph um, this one. I'm afraid that's as large as I can make it because of the format. You can photograph it and start drawing that one in. Remember, uh, I have oh, let's see. We have before you start drawing, you should be putting a little water on each of your paints so that they get nice and soft so you can work with them. And in truth, mine stay pretty soft. So it, my suggestion to you would be to wet them the night before and maybe wet them again when you start painting. And you do have to be careful of mold, like if you live back east or south where there's a lot of moisture. Here in New Mexico, there's not that much moisture. But I have had mold if you leave them wet too long under things. Anyway, that's not really a concern. The main concern is that your paint get kind of soft so that you can get quite a bit of material on the brush. I've got my piece of rag here. I've got a small mason jar with some water in it to dip my brushes in. I am going to be using the same as generally with these Princeton Heritage series. I get these at the local art store. It's called Artisans, and uh, and there you go. So just be sure and wet your paints before we get started here. Let me get the pattern back up there for you. You do. And I've got to do a little bit here on my phone. I try and put the broadcast up on my phone so I can see what's going on. Michael Spader, Beach Cottage. And there it is. And I'm live. There we go. Oops, what happened? I hit something wrong. Oh, there it is. And I'm logic. There we go. Turn that all the way down. Okay. Let's see. Let's get started here. Well, today was in the United States. This is November the 6th, the day after Election Day. Well, we have new president. Well, actually, he already was a president once, and he is again. Donald Trump. So here we go in a new and exciting world to see what's going to happen next. I guess that's the way we live. I'm going to go ahead and ink mine in while you are drawing yours. Have a little bit of ocean out there, just a little bit. And here's some land that's back here and up there. When I do them like this, they don't tend to come out as loose when I've already kind of sketched it with a pencil. You can see I swayed my roof a little more than what I did in yours. I'm gonna even put a little more sway in it there. You can make things look looser and older. I like to do this. These days I'm having AI. I'm kind of using AI to help me make a lot of the references because it's so much quicker uh, than other methods like going there. So I'm about half and half with places that I've been where I draw my own reference from a photo that we've taken or my wife also is an urban sketcher along with myself. And a lot of times we will sketch something on location that I use as a reference. But I am using some AI generated things. The reason I say that is this is an AI generated picture. I described it to Dali. I described this, what I wanted to Dali, and this is what it gave me. And my paintings, I don't use them exactly as Dali gives them to me a lot of times. I like to alter them to my favor. Humans, we can't necessarily paint as quick, certainly not as quickly, but pretty rough to do things as well as AI can do them currently. And I anticipate that that'll only get to be more true as time goes on. AI is coming on quickly and very capable of doing stuff that humans just have a hard time. But that said, I love to draw and paint, so I still do. I still do it, even though AI is producing things because just for my own pleasure and for a lot of memories. Sherry and I have fond memories of where we go, so a lot of stuff where our memories are in drawings and sketches and sketchbooks and stuff like that. Do, 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 do. So, what did everybody do? Is everybody painting something else? What have you been painting since the last time? Will start out being mostly landscapes, not so many, not so many things like here's the original of this, by the way. Oops, there you go. Let's see there. That's the original one that I did, and I have taught this one before in that class in a class in the city. Anyway, yeah, I'm about to start teaching live again now that we're back off vacation. I taught this class. I did this class just before we went on vacation, like in the, I don't know, maybe February or March of this year. I have my tea. The bag is still in there. Ah, yum. How we doing? Is everybody getting it? Put in the chat if you watched this video and you started doing the drawings and you took a picture. If you ever see this video, right now I don't have anybody really watching them live, but comment on the thing and let me know if you think I go too fast or too slow with the drawing. I know for a lot of people, of course, in the future should be able to put in your email address and we'll send you one that the pattern and you can print the pattern out to a 5x7, which is what we always all of our lessons are on 5x7. Maybe I'll put a couple in there. Should be enough. Give that a few moments to dry. Probably going to smear some ink here. What do you do? Okay, let's get this back up here. Move this over there. Hope everybody got that drawing. I'll leave it up in the corner if you're not quite finished. Works out pretty well, I imagine, if you're using a television to watch. Hopefully, you invite a friend and sit around in the living room and or the kitchen table, turn on the TV, and enjoy an hour and a half of practicing drawing something, practicing painting, watercoloring. I am going to start off with a big one. This is a Princeton number 12. And while you're finishing that up, I'm going to make some sky color. I'm using ultramarine blue. And as usual, I'm mixing it in a kind of a dirty palette to neutralize it just a little bit. Unlike, whoa. There we go. How's that? Uh, Unlike the original, it's faster just to show you this than it is to bring it up on the screen. I have, it's a slightly darker here up closer to us or at the top of the page and a little lighter. This being down here being very far away from us. But I'm going to try and increase that a little bit, make it lighter in the back and darker in the front to try and give it more of that atmospheric perspective so that it looks like we're looking further and further away. I think we'll do the same thing when we do this land back here. Oops. When we do the land back here and as opposed to the beach up here. And that way it looks further away. So get some blue going here. This so far is just pretty much straight ultramarine blue with just a little bit of other messy color mixed in just a little bit. And because this is a vignette, I'm not going to try and, I should have said that in the, oh, the what's it called, when I made the YouTube, I don't know, should have said that earlier. But I like doing vignettes sometimes. A little bit more water down here, thin it out. You can leave some clouds if you want. And I'm just going to keep adding just a little bit more water as I go down the page. Do, 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 do. I use a big brush on this stuff so I can not have to put too many lines in there. And I'll tell you something. This is kind of not a personal note, but just something for fun. My hand, I use this brush now. I've always done that, and I do it when I'm standing up as well. A lot of times I'll stand up to paint and paint with the brush from holding it way back. Uh, but it's a little bit easier for me now. You probably can't have this situation that I have, but my arm is actually, you can't see it, but my elbow is propped on the arm of the chair that I use in my office. And the chair that I use, much to my wife's chagrin, she doesn't like that I still have this chair in here, is I went ahead, I broke my leg 3 years ago, coming up on 3 years ago, just hiking and stepped on a rock wrong. I was walking the dog and we were camping in a place called Navajo Lake. And we were headed to Colorado. We were only going to be there a couple of days and then go on to Colorado and camp up there near Silverton. Anyway, long story short, or short story long, is I broke my leg and they had to operate and put in a big piece of metal and a handful of screws and that kind of thing. And I was in a wheelchair for a month or two, and I kept the wheelchair. It's very comfortable. I like the way it moves around in my office. And the armrests, that's what I was getting to, is my right here now, my arm is on my elbows on the chair, on the armrest. It makes it a lot easier to do this kind of painting than when I'm just free, have my arm floating free. Anyway, more information than you needed, but just something interesting. I'm going to hope that my ink doesn't smear too much as I go ahead and get rid of some of these pencil marks out of the background. I like the ink thing, and I like to even do more of it than I have there. But on this bit of water here, I'll let this dry up just a hair. Uh, we're not going to pay that much attention to the water. It's not really the subject in this painting. I am just going to make it a little darker than the sky, and maybe even a little darker than that. Put in a little more color here. My wife is at the dentist today, and as soon as this class is over, I am leaving her. She's just going for a cleaning, and I'm meeting her for lunch. We're going to our favorite little Chinese restaurant. I think I'll put a little more dark in there in this part of it here. I'll see if I can darken this up just a hair. Oh, that's too dark. That's some deep ocean there. Just spread it out a little bit. That might be a little dark, but we'll see. Mm, pretty dark, huh? There. Okay. This background here, this area here, we're going to mix a color and we're going to do almost the whole thing. We're just going to do it, bring the color up here lightly, and then put a little bit more material in it and go darker. So let's see if I can get that done here. I'd like to do it in this bowl, but this is some very dark color in here already. So I might have to switch it over and do this one. Let's put a little more. What shall we use? This is yellow ochre I'm adding. I'm using a bit of yellow ochre. So that's not straight yellow ochre, but it is pretty dark. I'm going to go ahead and put in, let's see, just a touch of lemon yellow, lighten it up just a little bit. And I want this first part to be kind of thin material. So let's see, where's our test piece? Let's see, how dark is that going to be? That's pretty light. So I'm going to take some of that material back here and you don't, on this far distance, you don't necessarily have to cover it all exactly. You want to be careful that it doesn't bleed into your water there, your ocean. I prefer to think of this as the Pacific because that's what I know. I imagine. I don't know what they have in the Atlantic. I'd like to know. I need to spend some time there, Sherry and I are considering in 26, not this coming year, but the following year, um, going on another large, you know, we just spent 4.5 months going around the nation on the west side, and we're thinking about going up the East Coast and end up in New York. We'll see. We shall see what we shall see. I'm going to add just a touch of uh, burnt sienna to this and it's going to get just a little bit darker as I start coming down here. And I'm just putting some movement in here. That might even be a little too dark, but I think I'll leave it for now. Maybe a little bit of that on the bottom here. And we'll come down here, maybe put just a few little drops of something that to indicate that there's something up there. Yeah, I need a little bit more of the lemon yellow, I think, or not the lemon yellow, the burnt sienna. That's a little too dark. So I'm going to lighten that up by reducing the amount of pigment, putting more water in it, leaving a little bit of white here and there. You can just do that dry brushing thing if you can. Take out just a little bit of that. I might take out a little bit of this up here. And I'm going to do this if I can, very lightly. Hopefully this is starting to dry. Like a little bit more of something up here. Like there was a bush and maybe right in here. And we'll take a little bit more of that same material. Still is a little dark. So I'm going to put a little more water in there and just a touch more lemon yellow. And we'll just keep coming around here. I'll put a little more water in. And most of this is going to be in shadow, right? And keep varying the color a little bit. So the whole thing is not all exactly the same. I'm just kind of making a modeled foreground there. While that's drying up, I am going to switch to a smaller brush. Have a sip of my tea. Hmm. If you like tea, what what kind of tea do you like? What kind? Hmm. I'm about to order some on that trip over. Let's see, I can't find it here. There's a place called the Flavel House in Astoria, Oregon. And this is not the blend that I like the most. It's called the Flavel House. This is special blend, but they had one, I think it's Queen's Breakfast or something like that. I don't know where the paper is, but I think I'm going to order some. Sherry and I both liked it, so I'll order some as stocking stuffers Christmas for the holiday season that's coming up. I'm just throwing some little darks in here that may have messed it up there, but I'm going to lighten it up just a tear. Yeah, lighten that one up. I have some soft tissue paper here. All right. While it's all drying up, I'm going to pick some darker color here. We've got some blue going on here. I might put a little bit more blue in there. And let's put a touch of that burnt umber. You can make this blue. Actually, I'll take a moment here and show you. You can make a similar color. You don't need to always, I normally use burnt umber. It's kind of what I call a cheat color, burnt umber and burnt sienna, but I'm going to clean this palette up a little bit and show you that you can just take ultramarine blue. You can just take some of the primaries, a little cadmium red, and I've got cad yellow deep here. Okay, that's getting a little too greenish on the green side, so I'll add a little bit more of the blue, a little more red, and you can just keep working it back and forth, putting in nothing but the primaries. I've got ultramarine blue, cad yellow, or cad yellow deep in this case, and cadmium red. And I'm making something that'll be very similar to burnt umber. See, let's see what else I have to do to it. There's that one. Ooh, that's pretty dark. Let's let it. There we go. Let it get out. So you can see it as it gets lighter and lighter. You can see what color it is. And let's see how far away I am from burnt umber. I just dipped the thing in there. Burnt umber is redder. See that? So I can put a little bit more red in there. And now let's try my color again here. Still a little bit more red. Anyway, I won't take the whole class messing with this, but you can see that you can make your own colors. Now it needs just a tad more of the yellow, just a tad, not much, but it's getting closer. And if you play with it enough, that's actually should be what's in burnt umber or something very close to it. So I'm going to take that burnt umber though now, and I've felt this color I've made, and I'm going to go ahead and add ultramarine blue to it again because I want a very dark color. And maybe even on the bluish side. If you were doing a sunset, you would do these front windows in um, maybe a light color. Let's see here. I just did one in my sketchbook, and let's see if the windows, I'll show you this one. You see how light that window is because the sun is hitting it. And this one, I'm not quite finished with this drawing, but this window will be darker and more bluish because it's in the shade. That one, you're kind of looking through. And actually, now that I'm looking at it, I think I'll add a little bit of the mountain back in there. But my point is, you need to think of the situation where what is affecting your thing. Right now, we're not saying that this is a sunset, just that the sun is slightly to one side of the painting. So I'm going to put just a little bit of color in there, and then maybe that's a little much because I don't want the whole thing blacked out. So we'll use the reductive method. Try and touch it so it gets a little bit lighter on part of it. Maybe it's a little darker on part of it. Should be, if anything, darker on the left side because the sun is coming this way. Because, and we'll use something similar, not quite as much though. Watch this. I'm going to try and not fill in the whole window here. I'm going to clean my brush pretty well and just barely bring a little bit of that over here. Okay, I'll do something similar here on the bottom so that it looks like, where you kind of see through it, but there's light reflecting off the front of it. And these back ones, I'm going to go ahead and make them pretty dark. They're in the shadow. We're not really seeing anything inside. Mm. You, of course, can change yours and make them however you like. I was listening to on YouTube, there are compilations of Ronald Reagan jokes from the old days. These classes are really for seniors, so that's why I bring Ronald Reagan up because anybody who's close to my age knows who Ronald Reagan was. It's not true of this class, but this is one of the things he said in a speech. He said, as Henry VIII said to each of his wives, his 6 wives, I won't keep you long. Well, I see the humor in it, but it also kind of seems like a distasteful bit of humor, doesn't it? There's something not quite right about that. Although, I don't know. The world's a changing place, so maybe it's an appropriate joke. For the house, is everybody catching up with me or past me? I know I try and stay close to the middle. Some people pass me up, and other people are uh, still drawing. Here's one. Here's a question for you. I think I'm going to do this one. I'll probably do this next week as a lesson plan. I just did this one, but it's kind of fallish thing to do. And what I'd like to know is, would you like to see more of these or more landscapes? So in the comments, give me your vote as the year goes on and a few people happen to accidentally look at this video. Vote, leave a comment, and let me know what you think. Okay, the building. Now, I have it mostly as a grayish, brownish gray, which I like. I think it belongs that way. Remember that the front of the little place is much lighter. You don't have to do it much lighter at first because we are going to put a shadow wash over this when we put this shadow in. But I think where we're going to start, I think what I'm going to do is mix a general color in here. But I want you to look at this little building and see, I didn't only use one color. You see there's this light background color, but there's also some other browns mixed in there. There's a little bit of movement on the door and under it. All right. So when we're doing this, as we're as we're painting this, I'm going to get something pretty light going here. There we go. That's pretty light. And I'm going to get quite a bit of water on there. and start putting a color in here. You can make yours a little yellower than mine is if the sun is hitting it. It's up to you. But also, as you put color in the building, go ahead and dip into something else. This is a little bit of that dark color we were using for the windows. And then I'm going to go back to this color that I had, but with a little more red in it. You want it to not you just don't want it to all be exactly the same color. That's all I'm saying. Is I mean, there's more to these techniques, but in this class, our main objective right now is just to not make it all seem the same color. I'm putting a little bit of burnt sienna down here, and I might put a touch of it in there. And a touch there. And this has something wrong with it here. If you can see, the burnt sienna was a little too much, so it looked like it was just coming from, like it switched colors right at the rail. I don't like that, so there you go. Hopefully we'll break that up with when I put some fountain pen over the top of it. And I'll keep going with the same type of thing onto the side here, which I kind of think the front could be even a little lighter. There we go. And I'm going to do the same kind of thing. Add a few colors and movement as you go along. A little darker there, a little dark up there. A little burnt sienna in the color back here. And back to my normal color. Do. On the top here, well, let's do the door. The door is the same. Can be darker, can be lighter. You could put a turquoise door if you wanted to. You know, you can do whatever you want just for fun. You could paint this whole thing blue or pink or something else, change the scenario. You could add a surfboard leaning up against the edge of the house here. Doesn't have to be an exceptionally good looking surfboard to be, believable because these paintings are so small. On the top of the porch, this part, I'm going to dab this out again because this is getting full sun on it. So it could be very light, excuse me, like that. But then the front might be getting full sun as well, but certainly this side's not getting full sun. And the front and the side here, top of the stair. That's a big stair. I drew my stair bigger than I did it on the original, so might be a little. And also we have similar stuff going on up here. You can add it as you go, or you can paint a big piece and just introduce, float in a little bit of another color, like that. So the floating in happens when you have a light color and you float in another color. I think it works both ways. You could have a dark color and Mhm. Excuse me, something is getting into my nose or my throat. Hopefully not a cold. My wife was sick this last week. Okay, we'll let all that dry and hope that this part doesn't mushroom where it bled into that. This part's getting dry enough to move on a little bit. And the water there is dry enough. This is another one. Let me show you this one. We haven't used this before, at least not online. This is Carandash. It's a Swiss made. This is number 3888. Supra color. Soft. Number 2. My and it kind of works better. It can just about add a little bit of light waves in here. You really don't need this part because like I say, that ocean is pretty nondescript. But you can lighten things up with that Caradash if you like. Of course, you can also just bring in a fine brush and wipe some out. Or you know what else works? If you practice a lot, you can use what's that sponge that people use to clean things? Magic eraser sponge. And it will actually erase watercolor, but you have to practice with it because you can really tear up the paper with it. Okay, let's do some bush. Let's start the bushes here. Because this is kind of a yellowish thing, I'm just going to take this, which was part of where we did the ground here, the color of this. I'm going to add in some darker colors. I'm holding my wrist. I've got a thin brush here. Sorry, I can no longer see what this is. It's another Princeton something, but probably a liner, or it's not really a liner, but pretty small brush. I'm just going to flick some branches in here. I may even do a few here on the side of the building, but you want to make sure that your side of the building is dry when you do that. You can put one hanging down like that. You don't want to do too many, but and I'll put a couple over here. Hmm. I'll let you guys put a few of those in. Hmm. How are we coming? Is everybody getting it? just put in a few of them right now because we're going to let these dry and then we'll come back with another layer of color on there. And drying up. The trim on this cottage, you can make it whatever color you want. On the original, I just made it slightly green, just barely differentiates because this is old and, you know, everything on it is supposedly faded. Let's see. On this one, I think I'll experiment. I might make it, a lighter blue. That's kind of thin and a little dirty. And I don't know if I'm going to like that or not, but I'm going to go with it. I don't know if you have this color. This is a teal, but you can pick a color of your own and experiment, or you can make it the light green. All I did was make was use I think it was sap green probably with a little bit of um, lemon yellow mixed in too. And I forgot on mine. I think I'm gonna add this another rail right here and one right there. I didn't draw one in, so I'm just gonna add one there like that, and I'll put some ink on it later on. You don't have to do this part at all, but I'm gonna go ahead and put some blue in here. And you can do the frames on things, the window frames, the door frame, but only if you have a steady hand. These are pretty small features, which a lot of us, I have a lot of practice doing these small things, and I still don't have shaky hands, thankfully, at my age. But my vision is, I'm struggling these days with, even though I'm using progressives, I'm struggling with getting to where I can actually see the whole thing, what I'm doing, see what I'm doing, or see small details. Mhm. Let's go ahead and this may be dry enough now. I'm going to get a little darker color or a little lighter color, maybe a little yellower. I don't know. Maybe straight burnt sienna. Try that. We want a color that's a little different from the background. We want to put a few more things in our foliage that are not the same color as the ones that we've done before. I'm going to put one layer. See if this is dry enough. I put a layer. This is pretty dark under the eave here. I think that's what you call this part of the building. I will probably put another layer over this when I put, there's a shadow that comes over, and I want this to get pretty dark. So I'm going to do that first, and then when we come back and put the shadow in, it'll get even darker right there. How we doing? Everybody having fun? Yeehaw! High times in the big city. Another Reagan joke was he said he was communicating with the Russians quite a bit and talking to the Russians, and that they joke a lot too. He said that the American was talking to a Russian, and the American said, "In America, we're free. I can walk right in and president's office and pound on his desk and say, I don't like the way you're running this country. I don't like the way the president is running this country." And the Russian said, I can do that too. I can walk right into the Putin's office, or not Putin, but who was it? I can't think. Whoever it was back during Reagan's time. Can't think. Why can't I remember that? Anyway, uh, I go walk right into his office and pound on the desk and tell him I don't like the way America's being run at all, or the way Ronald Reagan's running America. Ha ha. I don't know. Ronald Reagan was a good joke. His joke delivery was really good. I'm going to darken some of this up a little bit because it's just not handing out quite enough. And another thing you can do to make these things stand out, I'll show you after a while. Switching brushes, get a slightly larger one. I think this is a number 8. And I'm going to use this I'm going to make a big batch of shadow color here. I like my shadows to lean to the blue side, at least in this situation. You can. I've seen people have their shadows lean to the purple. Or as Jean Legassic, you might look her up. She's a great artist. She's an oil painter, not a watercolorist, but I was taking a watercolor class from her years ago. And she told me to look for colors in my shadows, which is a really cool thing to do, to add a little color in your shadows as you go along. Okay, this shadow, I'm going to put shadow um, on almost everything to the right and certainly everything under. So I've got a decent shadow color mixed up here. See if this is going to be, there you go. See that right there? And I hope I have mixed enough of it to do what I have to do. Okay. I'm going to start right up under here and just cover everything. That's here. Even the window, all of it is in shadow. And we are just going to come out with some from the house, not necessarily the house shape. And under here, I'm going to go ahead and put this, but I'm going to have to come back with another uh, layer. And I'm going to put that I didn't do in the original. I'm going to put a little line there to be the line of the, yeah, you know what that is. I'm going to go ahead and shadow some of this under here, which really should have a little bit of light showing through there, but I'm not going to put it there. There should be a little light where you saw under here and saw some of the beach. I'm going to go ahead and just make it dark. And we'll just start. This is a start for under there because all of that has to be uh, darker. There we go. Okay. And also on the roof, this part here, you don't have to have the roof. The roof could be all in being hit by light. And we're going to put that second coat in here with a little broader shadow that comes down. Okay. And these posts that are down here, these might have a little bit of shadow on them. They might even be a little darker if you can do it. I mean, only on one side because of shadow, And we want a little shadow from in here. And we just kind of play with this a little bit so that it has some areas where the light shines through. You can, of course, put some shadow in here from the, and you don't have to copy, it's just an indication. You know, we're not, this is, remember, I'm an urban sketcher, so things are not, we're not trying to be hyper realistic, we're not trying to be perfectly exact. We're trying to make a painting or a sketch that feels like the situation that we're looking at. That's the best way I can explain it, at least for me. I am still gonna, I knew I was getting this darker than I wanted it, so I'm still going to try and take a little bit more of that material back out of there. Let's go ahead and touch this. While all that's drying, I'm going to show you one. Remember, this is Thomas Schuler. I think we looked at this book in the last week or two. I love his work. I'd like to show you this one. This is a beach scene that he did a long time ago. Let's see, this was from 2016. You can see the buildings over here are just complete shadows. It's Duxbury Marsh in Massachusetts. It's a watercolor on Saunders Waterford. This one, of course, is a 22 by 30. He does much larger work. Look how beautiful that is. If you get a chance, look up some of his work because I'm telling you this it's a great way to learn if you want to go further. These are nice little vignettes and things that we do here, but they're certainly not what would be considered masterwork. If you want to go further with your work, it's some of these things that you like John Singer Sargent or Soroya or this guy Thomas Schuler. is another one. Maynard Dixon is one. Um, just try copying some of what they've done. Even if your composition is different, do a different composition, but try and copy some of the techniques that you see going on in that painting. If you want to go further with your work, you don't have to only listen to the things you see on YouTube. Books, at least as far as I'm concerned, still hold a great value. There's a lot in them. Here's another one of his seascapes. It's a good book. I would say, of course, I like books a lot, so I would say to anybody to get one. It says in this book, this is a quote from Robert Wade. And again, it's in that same Thomas Schiller Architect of Light book. Watercolor takes hold of each and every one who takes up the challenge to paint with this glorious medium. A habit? A drug? Yes, it is both of these things. And we are hooked for all time. I like that. It's by Robert Wade. A quote in there. Pretty cool. I like that book. I study a lot for my more advanced pieces than I do myself. I study a lot of other artists. All right, let's see where we are here. I still think that the whole shadow side is not dark enough, but I have to wait until this dries up a little bit to be able to make it work. Also, I still think that my ocean here, my water, is too dark. I like the original where I made this much lighter around the outside edge there. So I'm going to try and still take out a little bit more of that more the pigment. The sky is plenty dry. You can with your pencil if you want to. In some circles, these are considered pretty prosaic, but you could put a little teeny bird off in the distance and another bird maybe there, a little closer, and about one over here, a little bigger, even closer. Little something out there. Hmm? This side where I just put the shadow is still pretty dry, but I mean, still drawing. I'm going to go ahead and darken up some of these lines here on the right hand side because the light is coming this way. So I want to make these things personally, I want to make them stand out a little more. You can do the same thing with if you have a pencil that is like a softer pencil, maybe a oh, a 4B or softer, a 4B, a 4.6, something like that. The number two might do it, but I think you have more success with a very sharp, soft pencil. I'm going to go ahead and light or darken up some of these lines here, just because I want this building to stand out a little more. I'm just toying with it while we wait for some of this to dry up. I don't want to use a hair dryer because I try to design these classes to last about an hour and a half to 2 hours. I do it in an hour and a half here, but when I teach live, they're 2 hour classes. Um, uh, and to do it so that you could do the same thing in that amount of time without a big piece of equipment. These urban sketching, we don't have hair dryers because we sketch on location, we sketch where we are, and we paint what we see. And so I would normally be working with just the materials I could have around me. which is usually some travel brushes and a small palette like this one or smaller, and in a sketchbook. Okay, come on, dry, 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 dry. I'm going to shake this a little bit. I'm going to do this off camera so I don't make you dizzy. I don't know if that helped at all, but I can certainly go back in with some more dark color. Another layer of the dark under here. I'm kind of connecting that. You can put some lines that are shadows going up and connect that. And a little bit more under here. I'm going to try. Mine's getting, don't do this if yours is not dry. Just watch so you can do it when yours dries. I'm going to try and put another layer of dark because I don't feel like I got this dark enough with that first wash that I did over it. If yours is dry, you can go ahead and do the same thing. I'll make it just a little bit darker and put a few shadows in here. There we go. What else? What am I forgetting here? Give me just a second. I'll give you guys, let you guys finish that up, and I'll be right there. Yeah, yeah. You keep calling me. I'm still laughing. No, no. I'll get over there and okay. So let me back. Sorry, folks. That was my wife wanting to make sure we're on for lunch. Okay, here is another one. I like to make this even a little darker, I think. Again, it may not be that quite that dark in real life, but I guess also I could do a little bit of this, of that. Do, 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 do. And I could put another layer of there. Now, I'll tell you, I'm going to do a little bit more ink. And in reality, I would do a lot more here. and a lot more here where this kind of thing, where you come down and you make part of it a little fatter so it looks like maybe the thing has a little bit of a hole in it, that the wood is getting old. So I'll do it again, let's say right here, where part of it is getting a little wider, like there was a broken piece or something. You can do a little bit of on a piece that's up high. I would do a little bit of that over here and up here, but I can't do it till this dries up, which is not going to happen in the next few minutes. But my suggestion would be that you experiment with that, making things look older. It's kind of fun. I may have overkill here on the front of this, but still, it's a fun technique, fun thing to do. Another way to do it is to do cracks right on the edge. This works well with adobe buildings, but to do a crack right on the edge of the window like that. Spader 24. Don't forget to sign yours. Don't be afraid to do these more than once. Things can come out pretty cool if you do them more than once. Your second one may come out like, oh, much worse. But that third one might be pretty cool. You know, always remember if you don't paint these, you can't expect to get a perfect one every time. Expect to just paint them. And then the ones that come out really nice, why, that's the keeper, right? Of course, in urban sketching, a lot of ours, they're not perfect, but I still keep them. They're a good memory of the place, of the time, of the thing, whatever it was we were doing. I'm still going to put a little bit of light white back in here because I'm just not happy with how dark I got that ocean there. I think this white will dry up lighter. Now it's too straight across there. Oops, that's going to mushroom. Paint's too thick or too thin. I'm sure everybody that wants to, everybody that sees this in the near future, would like to discuss politics right now as election day just finished and the results are in. But remember, we don't do politics on this channel. We're just here to have a good time. So it's a good opportunity for me to remind everybody of that. We don't do politics. We don't do religion. We try to be polite in the comments. And I'm going to do these two different ways. I'm going to put a couple lines in here and a couple going this way. Let's see what it looks like. See if this one looks any good at all, huh? Take the tape off. Remember to pull it sideways so you try and not rip your thing if you do the full tape job like I do. Like I say, some people don't like to have the border on here, the white border. The mine obviously is still wet. I imagine that yours is as well. Let's see if I've got a mat over here I can set up on there. And let's see, I don't want to get it in any of the wet stuff. There we go. Let me get rid of, let's see here. Oop. Get rid of that. And here's the one I originally did. You can look at the two of them and see what pieces you would like to put in and what things you would have left out. See if I can get them both in the camera here. There you go. And this one, remember, this shadow's going to dry a little lighter than that. Everything in watercolor, 90% of the time dries lighter. But there you go, folks. I appreciate you all showing up. Stay safe, stay happy, keep sketching, and I'll see you on the next one.